Hello, everyone. This is Lady Hale coming with you for our show tonight. And I want to thank everyone who will be joining in and who will be tuning in with us. Thank you guys so much. You are amazing. Thank you last week for the show we had. It was so amazing. I'm telling you, the show we had last time, I'm telling you, if you missed it, you missed a great show. What we were talking about on the show was prosperity and the gospel. What did you think about it? It was so good. They were coming in so much. I tell you, I could not keep up with all of the comments that were coming in. They were coming in so fast. So I want to thank all of you guys that did join us and who participated, and y'all were on the road last week. And I just want to say thank you guys so much for everything that you guys did. And like we said again, go ahead and share and like this video because we want to get as many people as possible on this. And we want to have it open for everybody to come on and speak and, put their point of view in there. And we just want to say hello. And how are you doing, Pastor?
I'm doing well. How about yourself, ladies
I'm
and gentlemen?
doing just so fine. Now, Jeremiah is going to be a little late. He's still in a therapy session right now. So as soon as he get through with the therapy, he said he is going to be here with us.
Okay, wonderful.
Right. And I want us to continue to pray for all of our relatives that was in the state of Louisiana. I'm so grateful and thankful that my son and his wife were able to get out. I've been getting calls from pastors, like a couple of them, what I'm going to do, because I hadn't planned on doing it, but what I'm going to be doing, we're getting ready. I'm going to take a big truckload, and as we go through, I will be stopping through the different smaller towns, because when all of the aid and everything come through, they missed the little small towns.
Mm-hmm.
Like Slidell, Homer, and all those
Right.
small towns, they get left out. So what we were trying to do is just to make sure that we get all of them and make sure we don't miss anyone this time. So I've been getting a call. And also, if you're in the Houston area, my friend John Marston and the Bread of Life downtown, they are getting hurricane boxes. Okay, this has a lot of feedback on your ear, Pastor. Can you turn your volume down? It's me. I turned mine down. Mine is out. What about now? Okay, can y'all? Yeah, they texted me. That's what they're saying. Okay, um, that's fine. Okay, that's what they're telling me. Okay, thank because I was talking. So I just want to make sure if you're available, please contact John Marston. Let me get his phone number for you guys right quick. He's with the Bread of Life downtown. And if you can go and volunteer anytime, Monday through Friday, because they're doing a distribution on Saturday, John's number is 832-960-0074. Again, John Marston's number is 832-960-0074. And I'm going to pin that number in here also. So we will want to make sure that he has enough volunteers. And like I said, I'm in the process of getting a truck going down there so we don't miss the smaller states. I mean, the little smaller cities. And we will be going down there. I will be getting with other organizations, and we're going to collaborate together to make sure that this gets done. So if you do want to be a part of that, you can also call me. My number is 832-417-1696. Again, my number is 832-417-1696. And don't forget to please contact John Marston. I'm going to put his number in here also if you want to volunteer with the Bread of Life this week, because they are going to be doing Saturday hurricane boxes for all of those that need assistance while they're here in the city of Houston. And my organization, I'm going to be collaborating with a lot of other organizations here in Houston. We're going to take a big truck down there, and I will be primarily focusing on the smaller cities like Slidell, Homer, and some of the other smaller cities. So if you know anyone there and y'all would like to participate with us, or y'all would like to be a part of what we do, and you can text me. My number is 832-417-1696. Again, text me at 832-417-1696. And we want to keep everybody in prayer there. They're not letting anyone in the city right now, and they're not letting anyone out. So I will keep you updated as we get more information. And I just want to thank you guys for always coming in, supporting, or if you have any relatives that are here and y'all may need some assistance, please contact me, because I do have warehouses of things that I can get you, like non-perishables, immediately right now. And you can text me again at 832-417-1696. We're here to help. That's what we do. So how you been doing, Pastor? I saw you had an accident or something went wrong.
You know what? We have slight hiccups sometime, and I ended up having surgery on my foot, and I'm in the process of recovering. But somebody had already asked me to preach, so I had to man up and do what I could.
I know that's right.
So they were able to accommodate me, and it turned out very well. How you doing, Mr. Rankins?
Hey,
there you go. And y'all know he have a CDL, so he was the one that was teaching me how to drive the U-Haul. Because as you know, when I first started out, to get from my house, which I stay over here, to downtown, it probably take him about 20 minutes, but it takes me an hour. So I would have to leave a whole hour early. And then if I see traffic or something on that side, I'm not turning on that street. I'm going all the way around. But I'm kind of doing a little bit better. I can kind of get there in about 30 minutes now. So I'm increasing. I don't take an hour no more. I can get there about 30 minutes now.
Wow, that's wonderful. You can drive a truck. I can
and they was calling me. Yeah, and they was calling me, talking about, we see you out there driving those trucks. Can you come up to Slidell? I say, I need to leave now if I'm coming next month. I need to leave this. I need to leave today. I'll be there by next month. No.
Oh, wonderful. Wow.
I'm trying to pull up the video so I can engage in some of these comments. So
all right, yeah, because they already started. I'm trying to BOLUN volunteer at the Bread of Life. John is going to be needing volunteers all of this week because they're going to be doing hurricane boxes this week. So they're going to be giving whatever they're giving out is going to be given out this Saturday. He hasn't given me a time yet. So I will find out the time and I will post that for everyone. But we're just trying to get in gear. That's what we do, and that's what we do best. We get action and we help and we support. That's what we do.
That's right.
Man.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. So I did put some questions in there. I know they're going to be ready. Hello, Miss Linda. I love her. Y'all know she's listening to us all the way from Canada.
Wow.
I've been knowing her since I started my food show. She has been with me since day one, and she's way in Canada, and I know the times are different. Sometimes I will come on later at night. She's stick it in there till she fall asleep. But thank you, Miss Linda. We love you, and I see your wife is on here too. She gonna have to log in too and come on in. She not exempt. She gonna have to come on too.
I already told she just waiting. She was coaching me before I came on the show. So.
All right now. We mad at her.
So yeah, we gonna have to have her on.
Yeah, she gonna have to come on too.
Yeah, I was looking at some of the questions you posed, and I was like, whoa. I said, we in for explosive night tonight.
Well, these are some of the questions that have been asked to me also many a time. So y'all know I always give my opinion, but it's not all about my opinion. So I'm just going to let somebody else have an opinion, and I am just going to Be in the comments. I'm gonna see what they talk about in the comments. I'm gonna stay with the comments. I'm gonna see what they talking about in the comments on there.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna have a
well, your first question was, why is the divorce rate so high within the church? I was doing a little research, and 38% of the people that attend church regularly have experienced a divorce.
Right.
I think that kind of speaks to the fact that I think sometimes the focus on a marriage in the church is on who's dominant.
Okay.
You know, and I think that's one of the reasons that, you know, church is about the wife should be obedient, and it's that focus that I think allows for a woman to feel almost like she's being dominated. And, you know, if a man doesn't feel like he's getting the respect, then you've got an out of balance relationship where, in truth, in the book of Genesis, it talks about them ruling with dominion, which is ruling from a place of authority. And we seem to have forgotten that and gotten into what is an unbalanced relationship, seemingly in New Testament times.
Well, what about now? This is something that I had addressed, and I think we had talked about this some off topic. The Bible says that until death do you part. So if I'm in a domestic violence situation with my husband, we're both in the church, we're both Christian, should I still stay and not leave? I should still stay and take the abuse?
Ooh.
All right, now don't get quiet.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Well, I mean, so there's two parts of this. For me, on the therapy side, anytime that you are at risk or you are at risk of hurting someone else, then you have to either seek help or you have to remove yourself from the situation.
Okay.
It's just that plain and simple. When you have kids involved, you've got to think about this trauma that you're exposing your kids to, because childhood trauma can lead them to suffering from mental illness and trauma for the rest of their life. And so, you know, what are we doing there in that situation when you're forcing your kids to be in that environment of abuse? I just, you know, you just need to remove yourself. But on the other side of that, my personal views, my spiritual and religious, I'm very against divorce. I'm against it. But nowadays, I mean, it's just kind of desensitized to our population, and it's nothing to get divorced. And, you know, people are getting married when they shouldn't, or having children outside of wedlock when they shouldn't. And so, yeah, it's just
about this. Last week on the news, it was a sheriff here in Harris County. His wife had been beaten for like the last 10 years. He was taking clothes hangers and belt, and he was just physically beating her so much. And so the little girl, which was about 6 years old, she called 911, and they came, and he was arrested, and he has been relieved of duty. So he's supposed to serve and protect her, but then when he's going home, he's violating his wife in front of the children.
You know, I think the thing is that so much of, especially when it goes on in the church, is programmed. One thing that I had you know, if you can remember the color purple,
right?
Just the way Black women were treated during that time was they were supposed to endure the infidelity. They were supposed to endure the beatings that was just a part of their life. And some of that has still lingered on even till today. And, you know, women have to understand that you are in immense danger when you are suffering domestic violence. I've dealt with women, especially in ministry, where we used to go to the homes where they were being, you know, housed at because they left relationships of domestic violence, that even in the church, it was almost this, as Mr. Rankins was talking about, there's this area of being desensitized to abuse. And so the woman is expected to carry that weight, expected to endure the infidelity, and they're not. The men are not counseled as to changing their behavior when dealing with a marriage relationship. So I think that's, when you're talking about therapy, you're talking about healing. And both of those parties need to be healed. A lot of times when men are abusing women, they watch their father do it to their mother. And so they're living really a rerun almost of what they experienced as, children.
That's exactly what I just put. That's exactly what I just said.
We put that there.
Yep.
Yeah. So, like I said, I remember The Color Purple, and, it's like, you had these three women that the story revolved around, which was Miss Seeley, there was the Oprah Winfrey character,
Suge Avery.
And Suge was the loud, portrayed almost as
the outcast of the church, remember?
Because
her dad put out the church.
Yeah, and her father, and she had a very complicated relationship with her father.
Yeah.
And so did the character Miss Seeley. They had those complicated, abusive paths that allow more abuse to flow into their relationships as married people. Hoppo told me, Hoppo's beating Sophia. That was her character.
Sophia.
And so we see a lot of that even in modern times.
Yeah.
We see a lot of where the women just are supposed to, if they do it, they are labeled as Jezebels, as, basically prostitutes. But if a man does it, it's because of the pressures and the just the way it is. And we have to level that and balance that off in the church so that it's equal rights for everybody.
Right. And I totally agree, but like your wife said, unfortunately, the church has not addressed these issues. Why won't we address these issues? And they should be addressed, not like y'all heard me say last week, the friend that I had on there would come to church with the black eyes and all beaten, and all we were just told, okay, well, just go and pray about it. But I have these black eyes, I'm all bruised up. My children are seeing this. Other people in the church are seeing this, but nobody is saying anything. So when I go to the altar and I leave, I still have to go back to my abuser. And don't let it be said if one of the abuser, it could be a male or a female. What if he's one of the ministers in the church and the pastor won't address it?
You want me to speak to that?
Yes,
sir. I will most definitely speak to it. The truth of the matter is that this kind of behavior is rampant in the church, and how can someone that has done it themselves counsel somebody else not to do it?
Correct.
Some of our ministers, it's like the Bible doesn't exist. The Bible has, guidelines for what a minister should represent in the church and in the community. And so often we have pastors that counsel other pastors that have that same behavior issue.
Right.
They can't counsel him effectively. Because they themselves have been guilty of it. Paul talks about marriage in the book of Ephesians, even though it said that he was single, but he understood how a marriage should be because of how Christ treated the church. And that should be the example before anybody. If the biblical example is not right, then the marriage is not right.
Correct.
And that is the issue, is that the church can't address it effectively because we're not using the tool of the Bible to govern our marriages and our relationships.
Jere'My?
I think that, if a leader in the church has done this in the past, has turned away from this, that's one thing. But if the leader in the church, whether it be pastor, bishop, deacon, whoever, a leader in the church who is to be setting an example, if he is, continuing to engage in this behavior, I just don't think he's in the position, or she is in the position, to really to counsel. I think they should either pass on the duty or recommend someone else. I don't think that now let's talk about addressing this behavior, because if you don't address it, that means you're condoning it. Okay. And so, I mean, think about a young girl who walks by with a black eye, and you know that there is physical abuse happening. Let's say if that was to happen in my office and the girl comes in, I've got to inquire about it. Got to
Mhm.
ask about it. And hopefully she tells me the truth. If she says, "Oh, my dad did it. Oh, my mom did it." You got to do something about it. Either make a report or you tell some of the other brothers in the community, in the church, and y'all have to sit down with this man or the woman, and you have to address it, because if you don't address it, you're condoning the behavior.
Mhm. I think that's well said. I think that's well said. It's just that in a church that is primarily governed by men,
Yes.
there is this built-in inequality that exists. Um, it's so often that um, my wife, um, she picked up a young lady that used to attend our church, picked her up as she was being beat.
Mm.
Husband was beating her out in the middle of the street. She had 5 or 6 kids. He beat her, and the conduct was so brazen that he beat her. She went to church. Maybe a week later, he came looking for her at the church, and he had a child with him.
Mm.
Well, I had known her for a long time. I knew she hadn't been pregnant recently. Well, come to find out, that child was his child with another woman. Um, we have just a built-in inequality in some churches where this kind of conduct is not only allowed, but in a lot of ways promoted.
Mm.
And so if you're going to address that conduct, it has to start with, to me, a congregation that puts pressure on a pastor to conduct himself a certain way. To stay away from scandal. How can you have a man of God that represents you, because he's representing you also, and he's caught up in this kind of conduct? If we don't have guidelines for people who pastor us, we don't have guidelines for ourselves, because we're supposed to follow them as they follow Christ.
That's true.
Let me ask you this. Can I pose another question to you?
Yes.
How do we address this? How do men in the church, in the community, how can we address this, in your opinion?
In my opinion, one thing it has to start with, if there have to be rules and guidelines in place, because if we don't have those rules and guidelines in place, then we're so quick to just say, "Oh, he's that's between him and God. He's not accountable." We're all accountable to someone. If we break laws in the community, we're accountable to law enforcement. If we break rules in the church, it seems like there's no rules or guidelines that decide that you've committed adultery. There's a period of 8 months that you have to relinquish all duties within the church until you've gone to counseling. That we're going to put somebody that we can verify that has never been guilty of this conduct, and put them in place as an overseer to help guide the church going forward. But if you do nothing, that's why the behavior not only is present, but it increases, because we don't put rules and regulations into the church to help us guide the church through this.
I think you're right on. You're right on. I'm trying to process what happens when these rules, these guidelines, these violations, how do we discipline that? How do we rectify this? How do we stop the behavior
Well,
without the use of law enforcement? Because I just kind of want to exclude them from the picture as
yeah,
well.
I understand what you're saying, but I'm saying regulations within bylaws. Um, I knew of a pastor that there was infidelity that took place. It was so brazen and just outlandish that the church had to shut down for a period of time because it fractured that that body,
The congregation,
their
yeah.
congregation, where they couldn't even have a service because there was so much
Mm-hmm.
acrimony between, hey, you should let him go on. Of course, he was financially supported by the church. He did not work a secular job. His housing was provided by the church. His car was provided by the church. And he was deliberately forced out because they felt as though the behavior was so outlandish that there was no way to continue to allow him to proceed. He was compromised. And they had to bring another pastor in. It disrupted, but it set a precedent that if this is what you're going to do, and this is what you're going to do in the house of God, that there is a penalty.
Mm-hmm. I you know, and I don't want to throw him underneath the bus, but let's talk about it. John Gray.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know kind of the backstory on him and his
Yeah.
situation with his wife?
I
It's
didn't put this comment on here, y'all. That's my husband. Don't y'all start asking me no questions.
My wife is putting some on too. I mean, they both coming on with it.
I know they're gonna have to come on. They can't just throw us out of
That's
here
why I
like
told her, I
that.
said, you got to come on the show next week.
All right, y'all ain't finna throw us out of here. I
Yeah,
saw
you
you
don't
looking.
just
I
have to-
said, wait
you
a
don't
minute,
just
let
have
me
to pull
stop
up a
this
truck.
because they're gonna get to asking me questions. I didn't put that up there.
Well, it's getting too good. They can't stay away. So I told them, come on with it, then. If
They're
that's
gonna
what
have
you
to
want
come.
to do.
Yep.
Yeah. As far as the John Gray situation goes, I think it's a perfect example of what goes on is that, it's almost comical because, he admits to affairs, well, it's this kind of affair, it's an emotional affair, but it is in effect teaching people that this is a situation that even though he's, like I said, he's married, he has children, there's so many other obligations. How can you take it seriously if you're engaging in that kind of conduct? I do think that there is recovery, but to what end? At what point Moses sinned, say, one time and died because of it? And what happens a lot of times is that we allow a minister to almost die right in front of us. He's no longer effective. People will disregard what he's saying, even if they continue to attend church.
Mm-hmm.
They're no longer really true believers because they say, "Well, how can he teach me if 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 he's doing this and I'm doing it? How can he even counsel?" So he's compromised to the point of how can he continue to lead?
Yeah. That's interesting. That's interesting because in the drug addict, the addiction, and that recovery world, that lifestyle, a lot of times the addict will not listen to a person like myself. I've never been an addict. It's substance abuse and drugs, and so the respect, they're not going to want to listen to me. Okay, what do you know? And so you're absolutely right, though. I do agree with you in that he's been doing this sexual immorality and lusting and cheating and infidelity, all this other stuff. He can't tell me, so I, the mindset, I get it. It's definitely switched on the chemical dependency side.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that dynamic is very interesting. It's very interesting because we do hold these priests, these pastors, these leaders in the church to a higher standard, as we should, but not to the level to where we know that they can't make any mistakes. So that goes back to the point that I was making earlier, where we make these mistakes, but turning away from them. Now, when we make these mistakes and we continue on with these behaviors, that's something totally different.
Mhm.
What I would like to see is, as far as reconciling, what can we do within our community? And I wish that we had uh, in the church or phone numbers that we can call of brothers that would go knock on doors. Instead of
Mhm.
calling the police, we call this organization or this agency um, to kind of help us mediate things. But then, when you get involved in folks' domestic violence, folks end up dead. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You can't come into my house
Mm.
and don't come over here with that. And so, it's very tough. It's a hard situation to deal with. These are grown folks. A lot of times, women will get in these relationships, stay in the relationships after being abused, physically abused, and you may pull them out of the home if they return back. And what do you do?
Yeah.
It's
Um,
tough, very tough.
Lady Hale, what you've dealt with, I'm sure, people that have been caught up in this situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um,
And you have to take into consideration, we have rescued women in the middle of the night, 1 and 2 o'clock in the morning, getting them somewhere. They just leave with the clothes on their backs.
Mhm.
And if you have 4 or 5 kids, you have no income, the phone has been cut off, all of your resources are gone, you have no car, you have not anything, and he called you back, oh, I'm just sorry this happened, I'm sorry. Then the honeymoon phase started. But I always call it's just a vicious cycle. Then the honeymoon set, then it's just going to be a vicious cycle. That's what I've seen. We had rescued a lady probably like last summer,
mhm.
and I think she had 6 kids, and the man had beat her so when she came to us, the man had beat her so that the doctor told her if she get one more beating, because her lungs were
Mm.
punctured or something was wrong with the lungs, she couldn't take another beating. And we told her that, and we had gotten her a place to stay, got the kids into another school, so she's back now. And I've I've done all I can do, and I
Right.
think what I had to do, because every time she got in that situation, she knew I was coming to get her. And I just had to step back. I said, I can't keep going through the vicious cycle all the time. Even though I work with, it's a group, I don't really call it name. All I do is just pick up a phone call. Quite a few of them were snipers
Mm.
in the military. They provide security for me and do things like that. That's a group of people you don't want to mess with, because
Right.
it's
Right.
much for them to go off. So I be very careful when I call them, because when they go in, they're not playing. So
Right.
I said, I can't keep calling these people out, calling them, and we going out there, and you keep going back to the same situation. You have to make some choices. And this been going on for years. So that's all I can do. That's why when the women leave and they call us, I provide them with clothes, food, and whatever they need. We have the different safe houses they could go to, but it's nothing we can do to stop you from going back. I'm not going to hold you hostage. And I would go to a lot of the domestic violence centers, to take resources and things, and you see them all beat up, all bruised up. You see them with the kid.
Yeah.
So we went there for like Christmas. There was this little boy. He was like maybe 5 or 6, and I was talking to him, and we were playing. All of a sudden, this little boy just jumped up and put me in a chokehold. I'm like,
Oh, wow.
"Come on here, where you get this from, chokehold?" But he was only imitating what he saw his
Right.
whoever do. So the mom,
Mm.
she just finally realized how that had been affecting her child when she actually said she saw him doing this, because I guess it brought back something in her mind what she had been through, sitting there with all the black eyes and mouth all swollen up. And I know it because she had the bruising around the neck and all of that. But I don't know, because I've never been in that situation for domestic violence. I've never suffered it and never been a part of it. I never grew up with it. So all I can do is just provide you the resources. And if it gets too bad or whatever, I can just send you over to a person like Jere'My and let you talk to them, and then I'm done. I mean, that's all I can do, try to help and assist you. But if you want to get out that situation, we have the know where the safe houses are to get you there and have resources for you. But it's always going to go back to that point where they always go back, and I just don't understand that.
Well, I dealt with a young lady as an investigator where I went into the home, and when somebody's been hit very hard in the eye, they have this. Not only his black eye, but they're yeah. And so I went in and I asked her, did he hit you? Well, we had an argument, and he accidentally threw a phone and accidentally hit me in the eye, and I was like, okay. And there was blood all over the floor, and she had 7 kids, I believe, for this one man. And the cops showed up. He was already gone. And she wouldn't tell me where he was, wouldn't tell me any, I had to find out information on my own. And, what I found out is that she had income, but she was still emotionally dependent on that person to support her. The question I have is this: is my wife was putting up a question about David. Mm-hmm. Of course, David is a famous king in the Bible, but one of the most heinous acts he was recorded about him was that he sleeps with somebody else's wife, gets her pregnant, attempts to hide the pregnancy, betrays a loyal soldier, and ends up having him killed. He's actually murdered by David in an effect to hide his own dirt. Mm-hmm. And so what happens is, of course, we know Nathan the prophet preaches to him and he confesses, hey, I've sinned. Now, he went through a whole bunch of personal tribulations after this, but he still remained king. So can we tolerate that kind of behavior in our society, or is that something that biblically, is it a tough crossover for us today to handle that kind of conduct and still allow a pastor to, after he's contrite, he's repented, are we expected to restore him to that place?
What I have noticed, and I'll let Jere'My give his point of view. What I have noticed, if the man or whoever the abuser is seems to have money, he's treated differently than someone who does not have money. So if I have means, that means, I could go buy you a new purse, buy you a new car, or we can move to a new house, take you on an extravagant vacation. And somebody else that's working just a regular job, you cannot do that. But the punishment should be the same, and the abuse is still the same. So I have seen that also too. When the man have means, it's like he's treated totally different, mm-hmm. And that's something that I have noticed myself.
What do you say, Marcus?
I'm a strong believer in change. I'm a strong believer in change. Just looking back at my impurities and my past and some of the things that I've done. So if someone makes those mistakes, a pastor, a leader in the church, I say leader in the church because I don't want to just limit it to a pastor, a priest, or reverend. So if a leader in the church does engage in these types of behaviors, I believe that they should be allowed to be forgiven and gone through a rehabilitation process before getting back into the pulpit and delivering the word. And the reason for that is God already going to judge them a whole lot more harsh than they are, us. And so it's not for us to judge.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you feel like that pastor, that leader in the church is unfit to lead, then there's other options out there in the community.
Mm-hmm.
But I really do feel like, people make mistakes, people fall
Mm-hmm.
down, and a lot of us are just we're hard to forgive. We
Mm-hmm.
just don't forgive, and we need to just practice what we preach. We need to practice what we believe in, and that is forgiveness.
Let me I want to bring a case to the show, and I want to see what you two thought about it, because it was something that made national news. But it died down rather quickly. There was some sensitive information. A bishop was renting a hotel, uh, came out to find that he was engaged in homosexual behavior. He ended up dying during one of those encounters. He was a married man, had kids. Um, the problem was that our perception of someone is somewhat skewed because they're in the pulpit. We often, for whatever reason, we think of that person as they're supposed to be the closest thing to God. And when his moral failure was found out, there had to be questions of, the first thing people are going to ask is, how much did the church know? He's getting a hotel in his city. His wife is a minister also. In that case, how should a church approach something like that? I think a lot of churches fail because we don't have somebody like Mr. Rankins on staff. We have assistant pastors, we have evangelists, but we don't have therapists on staff to say, hey, look, I'm dealing with some issues involving my sexuality. I'm dealing with some issues involving sexual addiction. We don't have paid therapists on staff in many of our churches. That is a huge weakness. And so I wanted to see, how would you deal with a situation of someone, maybe the wife or somebody in the church, coming to you as a therapist and saying, this is what's going on. How do we deal with it?
Yeah, if a couple comes to me,
Yes.
the first thing I'm going to ask is, do you want to continue with the marriage? And
Mm-hmm.
I don't really want to. I guess I want to gauge motivation on each partner. I want to gauge motivation to stay together. That's what I'm looking for in that question. And so if there's, well, I don't know if they change, or if there's some, I'm gonna gauge that.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of times they're gonna say, we want to make it work. Well, then for you to make that marriage work, some behavior needs to change.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I'll ask, what do you need from Charles? Okay,
Mm-hmm.
Charles, what do you need from Harriet? Not even addressing the whole what just happened, because a lot of times there's things that are going, the underlying things. There's some things that happened in the past. There's things that have been building up to kind of lead to this outlandish behavior of stepping outside of the home or what have you.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'll talk about the needs. What do you need from each other? Okay.
Yeah.
And then I'll talk about, okay, this behavior, and address the whole stepping out, homosexuality, exploring sexuality. A lot of times that comes from pornography.
Mm-hmm.
And it starts off with male, female, right? Homosexual stuff. Then it goes to younger partners. So it goes to teenagers. Then sometimes it can lead to kids. Then
Mm-hmm.
it can lead to just different, just because the world of pornography is infinite. You can Google and you can look up all
Mm-hmm.
types of stuff, cartoon
Mm-hmm.
pornography. So you get
Mm-hmm.
bored with the boy to girl or the male to man. And so you venture off into other stuff. So it starts with, pornography and all types of other sexual immorality. And so we're going to start with, hey, have you been watching porn? Let's kind of nip that in the bud and process that. So it's a whole slew of different things that can come up in this treatment process, but it starts with the goals. What do you want? What do you want to happen from the relationship, the marriage, and then we can work on the change.
Mm.
Yeah, that's I think that's really wonderful. And see, I love the way you have a process of dealing with that. Um, the thing about it is, so many times, especially in that situation, there is no healing because there is no process of dealing with the trauma. I've suffered the injury. Um, the first thing is not to just alleviate the pain, but deal with the injury. That means examination. That there's a process of surgery if necessary. There's a process of recovery time period, and what it's going to take to get over this psychologically. And so, if somebody, in your opinion, Lady Hill, we also see Elder Hill saying that a pastor is not considered divine, but for those women that deal with such a scandal, comes out as a homosexual, is engaged in homosexual activity. What is it that she should focus on in the aftermath of such an incident?
I have talked to some women, first ladies or ministers' wives, and the first thing I have just asked them, did you see any signs? What were the signs? Because a lot of times we want to ignore the signs that we do see. And as we would talk, not saying to be therapy, as we would talk, they would say, well, now since you mentioned it, I did notice this. And I was like, okay, say for instance, if you're a husband or wife, come on, make it a issue to come home 2 or 3 in the morning. And you never ask why you coming home this late at night. Where have you been? What's going on? It's just best not to say nothing. Okay, then you might see certain, because I was talking to one lady, you see certain charges on the credit card that you know were not yours. Okay, I know I didn't go to Victoria's Secret, so why would you go to Victoria's Secret? You didn't bring me nothing from Victoria's Secret. Okay, so what is this bill about Victoria's Secret? And I think a lot of times, I don't know if we as women be in denial, trying to keep your family together. But I know what my grandma always told me. My grandpa always says, what's done in the dark is going to come out in the light. My grandma already said, whatever don't come out in the wash, go come out in the rinse. So it's only so long I think that you can keep these behaviors under cover. And I would think if I was in this situation, it's not the fact to be embarrassed. You don't want anybody to know, but I think you should get help. And I think your wife had addressed that to Jeremiah. Why is it in our Black community we fear therapy? What is it? Just like we fear talking about therapy, we fear about talking about sex in the church, we fear about talking about finances, we fear about talking about cancer. These are some things that we just will not talk about, and they are very prevalent in our community.
One of the main reasons, okay, so when we talk about mental health, it is a sign of weakness. Okay, let's don't get it wrong. Let's don't get it twisted. If you lose a loved one, if someone very close to you passes away, you become sad, you become depressed, you become vulnerable. At that moment, at that time, however long that grieving process is, you are weak. And there's a stigma behind that. In our community, we don't want to be seen as weak. But the only way that we get stronger is if we go to someone, a professional or someone that can help us get stronger, get us there. And so we continue to be weak, and we mask it. We mask it by choosing not to address it, choosing not to talk about it, choosing not to face it. And when we do that, we're only hurting ourselves. It just doesn't show up until a big boom, until a huge episode, or we turn into a crisis. And by that time, okay, we're gonna go get therapy. Okay, we're gonna go get counseling. We're gonna go. The marriage is dissolved now. Look where we're at.
And I think that's a great point. Is that therapy is seen as a sign of weakness, and again, Our churches have all kind of. We want a choir director. We, as the church grows, we want a Sunday school, coordinator. We want a building fund, and you have to understand that just like in any corporation, as a corporation grows, there's pressures on everything that's associated with that.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm a married man and I'm in a ministry, and all of a sudden the ministry begins to grow, that means there's obligations I have to meet, time frames, all of those pressures, and then there's a situation where not only am I dealing with growth as a positive, but there's a negative also associated with that, which is I have to deal with more personalities. That's more time away from home. That's more time dealing with issues that I'm dealing with millions of dollars worth of issues. And we fail to say, you know what, we need a therapist on staff. We need a therapist that everyone has access to, that will protect confidentiality, sign non-disclosures, all of that. And that's where we're failing. We're not keeping up with those periods of growth as a negative and a positive.
Let me add on to that. So when you dictate, okay, we've got this person, this professional or this expert in this area dealing with the finances. We got this one going to deal with this, that. Well, the devil, Satan, looks for a vulnerability. He looks for a weakness in your program. He looks for a weakness in your organization, and that's where he attacks. And so, when you speak on this is what reminds me of that vulnerability in our wall. Okay. And so, for us to get stronger in our community, we do have to embrace the fact that we do get weak. We're not always 100% strong, and we can handle everything. And once we learn to identify and face our weaknesses, then that is when we can become stronger. But we have to seek out help. I think about the dominant ethnic group, white folks. And white folks, they'll say, hey, look, I'm not good at this. And they find somebody who is, and they learn instead of trying to figure it out themselves. And so that's a cultural value. And we need to learn how to pass some of these cultural values onto our youth as well. Go to somebody who does it better than you, knows how to do it. Go to the expert. And then that's where we can get healing. We can become better as a people.
Right. I like how you address that, because I've been to certain churches, but like our churches, like Pastor said, in the Black community, I'm sure that there's going to be someone, probably some of the churches, maybe like TV Jakes or some of the bigger churches, but even our middle or smaller church, is no access to a therapist, or there's no access to someone teaching us financial literacy. There's just no one there. And some of the religions, I know, they require that the pastors do have a master's degree. Just like the Catholic Church, you have to have a master's degree before you could be whatever, the priest or whatever. But like in a lot of our congregation, you need no training, just get up and start preaching, basically.
That's a great point.
I was called. I got a call in. I got a story behind that, but go ahead, Pastor Ellis.
No,
don't you need some kind of training? Because one lady said, everybody say they have been called, but I don't know if that's the right call you picked up. Everybody say I'm called, but who was called on another line though?
I think what happens is that people begin to, I think, and like I said, it's a sign of weakness to commit to therapy, but it's also a sign of not being able to adjust or being able to understand that modern times and modern methods have changed. Mm-hmm. So you have to be able to update and understand that that situation is a situation of handling the office. We would not dare make somebody the corporate head of Chrysler or BMW if they didn't have the requisite education. Mm-hmm. And when it's pastoring, we just hand it over. We just say, hey, look, he's called, he's chosen, he's anointed. Even kings attended classes and were taught by counselors and had counselors that aided them in ruling. And hey, that's a bad decision. You shouldn't do that. You shouldn't counsel that young lady at 7 or 8 o'clock by yourself. That's a no-no. We don't have ministers that are told no. We don't have people that say, hey, look, counseling sessions are from, 12 to 3. And you're going to keep the door no closed, or if they want, counseling sessions, we're going to have some kind of protection there to protect both parties.
That's right.
We don't do that. We don't think like that. We think, hey, he's trustworthy. It's going to be fine. The woman is coming in there. She, sometimes a pastor would deal with a woman or even a woman minister dealing with a man. You know that you're vulnerable to that, and yet you cannot speak to the fact that, hey, you know what? This young lady she's very attractive. She's been making some comments that are inappropriate. I'm going to have to pass you to somebody else because I can't handle it.
Mm-hmm.
That's a sign of weakness. I'm supposed to be able to handle it, but you can't.
Mm-mm.
And so if you can't, you have to be able and willing and have the humility to say, hey, I got to step away from this situation. I remember counseling a young couple in our church where, come to find out, there were some things going on with her and her father-in-law. Was a tragic situation, but we had to understand that this young lady was very, promiscuous in a lot of different ways, and we had to handle her differently. It just is the way it is, and you have to protect your marriage and your credibility, and that means that admitting, hey, this is a situation that's really sensitive. We got to put some safeguards in place.
True. And you might remember not too long ago, one of the ministers that was in our organization, he had a very nice sized church, and he was counseling like a lot of the young youth or whatever, and found out that he had been sexually abusing young ladies during the counseling session. So he served a long prison term. He should be getting out shortly. But he served a long prison term for that. And that's why I'm saying some things that, like he said, if you cannot handle, it's no need for you to probably be involved in that situation. Nobody ever knows. Nobody even picked that up in him. And that's some of the things that we have to make sure we hold people accountable. And like you said, put people in place that is accountable. I had a friend at one church. He was over the finances at the church, and he didn't even have a GED. So I'm trying to figure out how you get over finances and you don't even have that's what I need to know. But sometimes we have to just like Lanita just said, anybody can preach in the Black community, start carrying the Bible, profess you have been changed, and it's all. Yeah, so that means, okay, I'm saved, I got my Bible, and they'll put you in position. So that means I have no experience, nobody know about my background, no accountability. What have I been through? How can I benefit the ministry? What will I bring to what can I bring to the table to help the ministry? But we don't see that. Just like you said, just pick up the Bible and just start preaching.
But
I've been knowing Benita for a long time. I've known her and her family for about 30 years. I've known her for a long time. Most of the people I'm talking about, she already know because we came from the same place. I've known her about 30 years. She already.
I feel like this. I feel like social media is a great platform for you to have your voice.
Right.
And so if you feel like you've been called, you've got your own platform. Go ahead, start speaking. And no one's gonna hold you back on that. It's
No,
up
we ain't
to
gonna hold you back.
it's up to people to follow you. It's up to people to listen. It's up to people to take in what you got to say. So
Somebody go follow you. Just get up there and get a Bible. Somebody go follow you.
right,
Somebody.
right. And if you have really been called, if this is really your calling, then your platform, your audience, your members, you know it'll organically come together. It'll organically be there if you have been called. God will make a way. Amen.
I have seen them on there. I'm like, where did you get this call from? I don't say nothing. That is not for me to say, but I be like, okay, okay. I'm not saying nothing. I won't be tuning in, but I see the signs. I'm not doing this. Nope, not doing this here. I see them signs. Nope, nope, not
Yeah.
doing it. But yeah, I totally agree with what Benita was saying. Like that, we eventually we're going to have to do some accountability. We're going to have to do something. I don't know what's going on, but I think when this pandemic hit, this opened up a lot of people's eyes, for it actually being in the church. And I know what the
Mhm.
Bible said, don't forsake yourself, for coming together. But I think a lot of people eyes have been opened up during the pandemic. They got to see a whole lot. I told y'all last week, a lot of people are diverting their tithes offering. They're starting to put them into nonprofit organizations like mine.
I
That's
have.
what they're doing now. They said, well, we didn't put money into this church for so long. Y'all been saying we're going to have a building fund for the last 20 years. We ain't seen no building. We ain't seen not even nothing on the parking lot. We ain't seen none of this. So
Yeah.
I think because we were in a situation like that, Benita could say that too, 20 years, and we taking the money for the building fund. Okay, here's 20 years. We still don't have no building. Okay, so what we gonna do?
I have no problem. I have no problem. No trust issues with giving to churches like His Way Baptist Church.
Right.
Where I know, well,
You
I feel
know,
very confident. I feel
I
very
do too.
confident that my tithe and offering is going in
To a good
a a,
place. You're
a
right.
good place, a good place. And so, I have been committed this past
Back to Wisconsin and also
this
Arkansas.
past month on other endeavors, but I mean, if I have to go to a church and I felt led to give, it's
Mm-hmm.
His Way Baptist Church
I know.
every Sunday.
Everybody is genuine over there and is very genuine. And since you mentioned His Way Baptist Church, tell us next month about the group therapy that's going
Oh
to be
yeah,
for the children 12 to 17.
yeah, sure. And I've got an exit stage left after this because I've got two little ones and I want to relieve my wife.
Of course.
But listen, on September the 18th, we are having another community youth group. It's one time monthly where we'll have kids from 12 to 17 set up shop and we'll process something. I'll come in there with one or two topics to process. And after that, it's up to the kids. We're going to talk about experiences and some things that they may be struggling with, whether it's school, whether it's bullying, or whether it's at home with domestic violence, some things that they've been exposed to. We'll unpack some things. So I keep it really hard at 12 years old because sex may come up in the conversation. There may be something that you don't want your children exposed to. And then 17 is the cutoff because if I have an 18-year-old or a 19-year-old come in there, maybe there's a little girl that he may be interested in, or vice versa. It's a liability issue for us. So I want to stay away from that. So 12 to 17 is the age. Come on out there. It's free to the community. And again, it's a great entryway. It's a gateway to introduce our kids to therapy. And so, yeah, His Way Baptist Church, 1818 Esther Drive, Houston, Texas, 77088. His
Right.
Way Baptist Church, 12
You know
p.m.
what? I've shared it on my page.
Yeah, and
Awesome.
I've
And
shared it too.
encourage people to attend. I think it's going to be an excellent situation. I'm going to be stepping away. We had a meeting scheduled with some of our prospective church.
I was up anyway, so that is fine. I have the information down there, and we want again to thank our therapist, Mr. Jere'My Rankin, for always coming on, providing help and resources to the community. And we thank you, Pastor, also for coming in, loving the community, helping the community. And don't you guys forget, please pray for Louisiana. We will be going out there as soon as the city is open. If you want to give us some resources or purchase something or whatever, you can text me at 832-417-1696. And don't forget, if you want to help, the Bread of Life with John Marston, they need volunteers all this week. They're going to be giving out hurricane relief boxes this week for those from Louisiana. So make sure you guys, if you want to be a part of it, just give me a call. My number is 832-417-1696. The best way to do is to text me. So thank you guys. Thank everybody for coming in, and we will see you guys next week. Thank you so much, and you be blessed. Thank you.
See y'all.
All right.